And we're live. Hello, Internet. My name is Miles Bassett. This is Ask Wildman, an open Q&A produced by Wildman Web Solutions. Here at Wildman Web, we are a full-service digital agency based in Lawrence, Kansas. We do websites, mobile apps, social media, anything that you could need to get a small business online. And also every week we do this live streaming to our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube right now to answer your questions. So if you've got any questions about getting a website up or running some Facebook ads or SEO or anything along those lines, anything about marketing, technology, that is our wheelhouse. Please let us know. You can ask us your questions in the comments below. I will be watching that. Or if you're catching this later, you're not watching us live, you can send your email or send your questions to our email. I've got that address scrolling below me. Just email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com, and we will get we'll either answer your questions there in the email or we'll use that for next week's show. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. But again, if you have any questions or you want to throw your 2 cents into our discussion, just throw your comments in below. I'll be watching those as we come up live. But discussing everything with me today is my partner, Mike. You ready?
Sure thing, Miles.
So, hey,
good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Wired, fired, inspired, sugar dipped, honey glazed. I'm doing just fine, sir.
Always love that. I don't know how many times you have to practice saying that. Yeah, so a lot going on in the world today for small business owners. I know we've got a lot to cover, so we're just going to jump right into it. I think that we could talk about how to build a website. We could talk about jumping into some SEO. We could talk about. I'd be happy to talk about whatever tech geeky stuff that you wanted to bring up today. But I think everyone is talking about one headline in particular. If you haven't seen the news already, we are officially in the United States in a recession. So 2 consecutive quarters of GDP loss or shrinking of the economy. That can mean a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people, but specifically to business owners, I think they may have some questions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today and what that means for the digital marketing world. Mike, does that sound like a good starting point, a good jumping off point? I know
sounds good to me.
And some tips that you'd like to share with the people in regards to running a business in difficult economic times.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Miles. I'm sure everybody that's a business owner today took note of the fact that we're in a technical recession, and we have been for all of 2022 at this point. And it definitely causes a little bit of a pause, and people sit there and they wonder, well, should I cut back on spending, and are my customers going to stop spending as much, et cetera, et cetera. And first of all, we should recognize that this is not a typical downturn or recession. This is more of a stagflation, where we still have high inflation, but we're also having a slowdown in production in the economy. The job market is still relatively well, but as so many business owners know out there that have been trying to hire, the labor participation force is really low. So there's all kinds of mixed signals out there, and I don't want people to get too afraid or too nonchalant one way or the other when they see headlines like this, because this is a very unique situation that we're in. And we started talking about this, I think, over a year ago, where we were warning people about inflation and that could lead to a recession. So these things tend to move slowly, but we could see some rather dramatic moves here in third quarter over the next few weeks or months. So it's important that we don't make any rash decisions and lose our heads, but we keep cool and we understand the context, because a macro recession can mean a wide variety of different things depending on what category of business you're in. A recession doesn't hit every category of business the same. Some are much more susceptible to recessions. Some actually do better in recessions. And so, depending on where you're at, you need to understand that context and really understand the fundamentals of where your core customers are, your supplies are, and things like that, rather than getting caught up in the macro headlines that we see every day. Just because the U.S. economy is in a recession doesn't necessarily mean that your category is going to be in a recession. Of course, I'm reminded by the great quote from Sam Walton. Is that when he was asked if he was concerned about the recession, he said, "Yeah, I thought about it, but I decided not to participate." So some of this is
Very good line.
So some of this is all about perspective and how you're looking at things and where you're sitting in terms of business category. But the main thing, of course, that and we're going to seem like we're being a little self-fulfilling here, talking about this as a ad agency is a big part of what we do here at Wildman Web Solutions. But I want to talk about today specifically the impulse that happens in a recession in terms of people want to slash costs. And so what's one of the first things that usually goes is your ad budget, right? Your marketing budget. You either stop investing as much as you once did in marketing, or some people just outright slash it altogether. As we saw certainly in the Great Recession in 2008. But the thing is that while especially if your category is heavily affected and susceptible to recession, it makes a lot of sense, right? Hey, I need to start cutting costs. But you really don't want to cut costs in your advertising, because what your advertising and marketing does is it brings in new revenue. So there's no such thing as really like a neutral cost, but some things don't affect the bottom line as much as others, and advertising is certainly something that once you start pulling that back or removing it altogether, you're going to start hurting your future profits. And that all goes back to this idea of market voice. And market voice is just this old school advertising idea that I'm sure everybody's heard of, that the more people know about you, the more people that are aware about you, the more people that are talking about you and seeing you again and again, it's going to lead to a greater share of market. It's going to lead to market voice equals market share. And so what typically happens in a recession, in a downturn, especially on the corporate level, is that they stop advertising as much. They pull back. Like I said, we certainly saw that in 2008. And so what happens if you don't stop, or you even accelerate your marketing and advertising, which some businesses are flush with cash right now, and so they're going to be able to do that. And what that does is, first of all, you're going to have lower costs, because almost all advertising is based on supply and demand of inventory. And so in good times, when people are advertising a lot because they have more money, the costs go up. And of course, the cost of everything's been going up these days. But we may actually see a reduction in the cost of advertising. And so the other thing that you're going to be able to do then is you're going to be able to get more advertising for the same amount of money or less. And so you're going to be able to have more market voice. You're going to be able to actually gain market voice, which is a really hard thing to do, especially for a smaller competitor. But if the larger company pulls back, that is an opportunity there. And again, so if you are smart and you invest heavily in gaining that market voice, that will eventually lead to market share. And there are a number of studies too that have shown what has happened over time, going all the way back to the Great Depression. But I wanted to share some examples from some of these studies and some things that I've been researching over the years of what can happen in a downturn for people that actually increase their advertising. So in the 1980s, 600 B2B companies were analyzed, and it was found that those who maintained or increased advertising grew significantly, and both during the recession and the following 3 years. And in fact, by 1985, the advertisers that had been aggressive in the downturn had grown collectively 275% compared to those who didn't. So that is, that's in the B2B category over 600 businesses, but that's a huge advantage for those businesses that were more aggressive in the downturn. Same thing in the 1990s. The brands that like Jif and Kraft and some of these now household brands, they actually grew more than they ever had in their history. Some of them grew 75% during this time because they actually increased their advertising, while some of the competitors pulled back. Uh, Going back, a little bit further in history, we can look at the Great Depression era, and this is a wonderful story on many different levels, Miles. But there was a huge cereal war going on in the 1920s between Post and Kellogg, and Post had arisen to become the dominant force in the cereal wars with cornflakes and grape nuts and some other things that he allegedly stole from Kellogg when he worked for Kellogg. So I'm saying that there's a whole great story here we don't have time to get into today. But what happened was Post stopped advertising and pulled back his advertising in the Great Depression. Kellogg actually doubled their advertising in the Great Depression, and that's when they came out with Rice Krispies and the Snap Crackle Pop ads, and they did a whole bunch of radio campaigns around that, and their profits grew by 30% in the middle of the Great Depression. So that there's an old-timey example for you, a little bit more recent history, but certainly probably the closest example to what we are experiencing right now is what happened in the mid 1970s, where you had periods of stagflation, you had an energy crisis, and a major slowdown in the economy. It was a 17-month long recession. So Toyota, we think now, of course, Toyota is being, one of the major players in the auto space. But in the mid 1970s, it was not hardly even on the radar yet in America. America was still dominated by Detroit, and why Honda and some other people were making some inroads. Toyota was still definitely not a household name, but what they did was they figured out that the Toyota Corolla had great fuel efficiency. It was the most fuel efficient car you could buy, I think, other than the Honda Civic then. So what Toyota did was they were really smart. They understood, hey, we have a strategic advantage here in the marketplace, and all of the big Detroit companies, Chrysler, Ford, GM, they are pulling back their advertising. Let's get really aggressive in America. And they went all in promoting the fuel efficiency of the Corolla in America. And I'm sure, as you know, the rest is history. They are now one of the top selling brands in America. And they actually surpassed Volkswagen in 1976, just as we were coming out of the depths of that recession, as the number one importer of cars in America. 1991, we had another recession. McDonald's decides to drop its advertising and promotion budget, and as a result, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell take full advantage of that situation. They heavily increase their advertising, and Pizza Hut sales grew by 61%. Taco Bell grew by 40%. At the same time, McDonald's sales declined by 28%. So, what happened there, Miles? It's not like McDonald's hamburgers got worse during the recession. It goes back to that same fundamental theory of market voice leads to market share. The Taco Bell and Pizza Hut, they were asking customers to come visit them. McDonald's stopped. People stopped thinking about McDonald's. People stopped remembering McDonald's. People stopped remembering the experiences that they had there, and they said, hey, let's go try something new. So again, this is, plays out in every single recession. We shouldn't think this one's going to be any different. In the Great Recession in 2008 and 2009, Amazon got very aggressive, and that's when their sales grew by 28%. They introduced new products and new efficiencies, and they increased their advertising budget. So again, we can go to any downturn, and you can go over the 14 downturns in the last 100 years and find a bunch of examples of companies doing this that then became household names. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of great studies and stuff like that. If people want to DM us, I'd be happy to send you guys some information on this. But bottom line is, you can't pull back on advertising unless you are willing to lose market share. And some people say, hey, I can do that. I can pull back. I can hold low for a year or two and come back and I'll get it right back. Maybe not. But the other thing here, Miles, is that we have to be working smarter, not harder with our budget. And so this is where some of the things that we've been talking about on the show really come into play, like doing a full audit of your website and making sure that it's highly convertible, because now is not the time to be wasting money getting traffic to a website that's not converting, right? It's, if we are going to have a major slowdown here in the back half of the year, we can't be wasting a single dollar. We need to make sure that every single dollar that we're utilizing is going to that purpose to bring in an ROI. And so this is where we have to go back to our marketing bridge, make sure that it is solid, make sure that we don't have holes in it, that we aren't losing customers that are wanting to do business with us, that we're just not fulfilling their needs or not taking care of them properly. And we need to make sure that we understand where our marketing dollars are going and they're being used the best possible way. And probably, most important, we need to make sure that we are taking care and retaining our customers more than ever. And that is really where a lot of our attention to detail and our focus should go, is into customer retention. It's always more expensive to get a new customer than it is to retain one, but especially when there's not as many people maybe out there buying as there was before. So I'm gonna get off my soapbox here for a minute, Miles. But that's my general speech. Every time this topic comes up of, hey, we're heading into a downturn or we're in a downturn, should I pull back my advertising? Should I spend less? The main answer is no. But the other thing too, Miles, is that it's not just about continuing your advertising. Going back to that Toyota example, it's about finding how you can give a better value proposition in a time where value propositions are valued more. When everybody has all this money to spend, I don't really care if I can get free shipping or if it's a 10% discount or whatever it is. When people have a lot less money to spend, those kind of things become much more important to the end user. So that's when we also need to kind of maybe reframe our strategy and really focus on building value rather than just doing the same thing that we were doing before the downturn. So I'll get off my soapbox, let you react to that or follow up with any questions that we might have.
Hey, it was a good spiel, good monologue. There are lots of really good information. It does make me think of some of the more personal investment advice that I've been hearing. Everyone talking about the financial situation, talking about the recession, and everyone's freaking out about their investments. And then go talk to an advisor, and they say, "Look, calm down. Now is not the time to freak out and pull everything." Too many people, when they see a recession, they see a downturn in the market, they go sell, they will pull everything out. And that ends up being a long-term loss. You hear the people say, I lost everything in the 2008 recession. Like, well, no, you didn't, unless you sold everything there at the bottom, or you happened to invest everything that you had in one business that went belly up there. But if you had a properly diversified portfolio and you didn't sell everything there, then you rode the market back up in 2009, and we started pulling out of that. So even though it is scary to look at this, and no one wants us to be in a recession as a business owner, it's maybe a little bit even more difficult to look at that. Now is not the time to pull up and run. If anything, similar with investments, in a recession, that just means all those stocks are on sale. So if you have some money, if you have some leverage, if you have something that some material you can put in there and you can invest, then you can actually get more for less right now.
Yeah, 100%.
So rather than looking at this as a big scary thing and running away from it, look at it as an opportunity. As you were saying, this is your opportunity to get more market share, to get more for less. Rather than pulling everything up and going and hiding in a cave or something. Now is your opportunity to invest more and get more for what you have.
That is an excellent point, Miles. Yeah, I 100% agree with it. And that kind of goes back to this whole idea of it's about your perspective. The greatest investors of all time, Warren Buffett and the like, they made the bulk of their money in the downturns. And it's the same thing with these great businesses, some of which we just gave some examples. But if I'm a smaller competitor, especially if I have cash on the sideline right now, I am licking my chops. I am ready to go, because this is when I can take market share. this is when I can actually get a bite out of the big guys and gals. When times are really, really great, it's actually harder to knock them off the pedestal. So yeah, it's all about perspective, and especially if I'm in an industry maybe that's not super susceptible, and I see my competitors pulling back anyways. Oh man, I'm getting aggressive for sure.
It's a cool way to think about it. It is all about your perspective. This is also why we try to help our clients and anyone who's asking us to prepare for these kinds of things. Because if you put yourself in a good situation, you've got a good website that's good at converting, you've got a little bit of money, you've got maybe some marketing material, some creative done or something, and you are ready to capitalize on something like a recession, then you can do a whole lot more damage than someone who is maybe just looking up and seeing like, oh, I don't have an online presence at all. I don't have the mechanisms necessary to take advantage of this situation. So always want to dig your well before you're thirsty. Title of an article that Mike wrote on our website. If you haven't already, check out our website. Lots of awesome resources there, including some great articles that we put some real time and effort into. But yeah, if you have prepared yourself, or if you have a strong online presence, then now is actually a really good time to try to leverage that and take up a little bit more space in your market and establish yourself as an authority in the space. So we don't want to go too horribly long here. We've been on for about a half hour. If anyone has any questions, you want to throw your 2 cents into this, please comment below. We'll be responding there. You can email us, askwildman@wildmanweb.com, or visit our website for some more information. Mike, any closing thoughts here? Again, talking to business owners, a little bit concerned seeing those headlines this morning.
Yeah, I'll just leave with the old adage from the old time advertising days, and that is, when times are good, you should advertise, and when times are bad, you must advertise. And it's just as true today as it ever was.
Short and sweet. All right, I like it. We're going to wrap up here. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you next week. Okay, like I said, if you have any other questions, you want us to talk a little bit more about this recession, or tips and tricks that we have in the digital space, please email us, comment below, DM us, follow us on social media, and visit our website at wildmanweb.com. Otherwise, we'll be back here live next week, next Thursday at noon, live streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So pick your poison there, and we will see you next week. Thanks.